This conference will now be recorded.
You know, so yeah, it's achievable. It's not rocket science, and you know, once we give it time, once we give it time, you know, then we will understand it, and we're just gonna pass it. It is not difficult at all, you know. So we'll just pass it. And fortunately, I understand your environments. You know, everything that PGMP talks about. You know, whether it's PLC or stakeholder or benefits or governance or even strategy alignment. It's things that are happening within your environment, you know. So it's something that is happening in front of you. So it's just if you're not actively involved in those activities, it just needs you to look at your environment differently, you know. So maybe there might be a gap in terms of experience, but now that you know this, you will look, you know, you look at your environment slightly differently, and now start asking those hard questions, you know. Now you'll be able to ask, because everything needs to make sense, and from where you're sitting as a project manager, because now you're going to start challenging even the classification of your project, whether your project is indeed a project or is it a program, you know. So then you start asking yourself, because you know, only through that approach that you will get to a stage where at least you will be comfortable with your understanding and the changes that you can bring about should you be given an opportunity to change the environment with using your program management understanding. Because sometimes these organizations, like even my experience, you know, when I moved into the program office, moving from a portfolio office from Transnet port terminals, joining a program management office. You know, they were expected to be custodians in programs, but I went in there. You know, there were gaps. You know, knowledge gaps while using the PMI way. Obviously, there's the organizational process assets, which is the standard project program governance framework. But then when I went in there, I realized that, you know, there were some areas where the framework was not aligned with international best practice, you know, so not only PMI, but other best practices as well. So as you try to introduce a change, remember there will be resistance, and there will also be you know, some people will feel that you are invalidating their experience, and that's painful, you know. So it requires maturity. So you might be trying to push that alone, and it is okay, you know. So when it's only you and no one really understands what you're talking about, you know, so you will even get names, you'll be called a theorist, and this is the step we're taking, because you're going to be called a theorist. You're going to be called, you're hiding behind the process because you want to bring stability. There must be order, and you want to have a clear way of making you know, seniors and project managers account. Even the beneficiaries, they need to account, because if you look at the program management framework, you need to clearly understand why are you doing this first, and then once you've established that, then you need to understand, okay, based on the benefits that I expected, who needs to you know, how are these benefits going to be achieved? Then now you start talking about projects. Okay, I need to do this project and that project. So which focus areas are we targeting to realize these benefits? Then you identify the areas, you identify the projects, that is now enablers. Those projects will enable you to realize those benefits. So now who's giving you that information? Remember, you are more coordinating and facilitating the process. You're not the beneficiary, you know? Okay, noted, Mr. Macha. I'm not sure, I just hope it's not my network. So you know, so then you know, you need to understand that chain. So now, as a program manager, you get sign off from the beneficiaries confirming that these are the benefits that they need, and for them to realize those benefits, they need, certain projects need to be initiated. That is a commitment, that is a commitment from their side. So if for whatever reason, after those projects, are completed, the business does not really get to a point where they benefit, or they realize those benefits, then those people will need to account. So as a program, you are making people account for their decisions. And now once you try and bring that type of stability, then you're going to be a problem, because now you are poking holes. People have been getting away with a lot of things. Now that you want to bring the stability, then it's going to make other people a bit uncomfortable. So that is the reality of the situation. So that is what we are going to be up against. So we are, this new knowledge is going to be rejected because it's going to make people account at all levels, even your seniors, your sponsors, even steering committees at some point. So that is the reality of the situation. So once you become a PgMP and you're trying to introduce that change for the better to assist the organization, it might be viewed differently, not because they don't see the benefit. Sometimes just because it might reveal a lot of things that were done wrong, and then people will be held accountable. So that is the reality of the situation. So it will capacitate you with the relevant information to be able to poke holes in anything that is designed to add value to the organization. If there was some expected benefit, then through this program management experience or knowledge, then you will be able to poke holes and see upfront that, look, this won't add value. So where is the link? So let's say you have a set of projects, you need to be able to link them to the benefits and understand exactly how each output of how each project output is going to translate into business value. So when you look at it, how it's going to add value to the realization of some benefit, because that's where it starts, understanding the realization, that the benefit expected, and what it will take to take you to that point where the organization enjoys this business value through these benefits. So I think I just thought I should share that experience, because the reason why there's only under 20 PgMPs in South Africa, is because everyone is comfortable being a project manager or managing programs using a project management approach. But now we're taking a step further because we want to challenge the status quo. And part of challenging the status quo, we must be comfortable learning new things and also unlearning some of the bad practices that we might be using in the industry, because in most in most environments in the country, we are using the project approach to manage programs and even portfolios, and that is not international best practice. Okay, so I think that's basically it. Mhlekazi Susela, greetings to you, sir.
Thank you, my good sir. Sorry I'm late.
No, great. No, thanks for coming. No, I really appreciate. Yeah, I believe last week as well, you indicated that you were a bit tied up and you were trying to sort out your schedule so that you can at least make time for the classes. So yeah, no, welcome, man. So I think, yeah, from the group, it's all familiar faces, I'm sure. Some of them you've interacted with in the I think in the other WhatsApp groups or in one of the PMP groups, but yeah, so it's all people that are from the PMP group, and now we want to chase the big dream, so PgMP. So we're taking a step higher. So yeah, I'm happy that you joined us. Okay, so I think let's now start with the business of the day. So from last week, we covered mostly the intro, and I think when we I think on Friday, I think we covered the domains and high level, the roles, and responsibilities of the key stakeholders or key roles within a program. And I think it was the program manager, the program management office, program sponsor. I'm not sure whether we touched on the steering committee or the governance board, but at least if we touched the program management office, the sponsor, and the program manager, I think those are very important. So that was important, leading to now managing the strategy of the program, establishing the strategy, implementing it, and then managing it, monitoring, controlling that very same strategy. So you will see that it is so important for us to first understand the need for this program, and then go into the program life cycle so that we can understand how everything fits together. So once we're done with the life cycle, then we're going to cover the benefits, the stakeholder, and the governance side. So with that approach, it will then help us to be able to link all of these elements to the program lifecycle. So we need to link strategy, benefits, stakeholder, and governance to the lifecycle, because when we're managing a program, we manage a program according to the program lifecycle. So what are the program lifecycle phases? We formulate first, and then we plan the program, and then we deliver the program, and then close it. So there's basically three, but in definition, that's the main phase, and then we have sub phases, which is formulation. In other words, that's program initiation, and then planning is the next sub phase after we've established the program. And then the next step is for us to deliver the program. So that's where we authorize and plan components, and then we provide oversight and make some adjustments to the components depending on the need. And then we transition those components as we finish them. So once we've transitioned everything, then we'll be in a better position to close the program, because we would have delivered the expected benefits. So now we'll just be transitioning all those benefits, and then formally closing the program. So that's it. So Mr. Macha, I'm not sure whether you want to say something, or I see you connected twice. Okay, so let me just mute the other one. You will just indicate if maybe you wanted to say something. So I'm just thinking maybe you're battling with the network. Okay, so in program strategy alignment, so what are we going to cover? So we're going to cover the elements of program strategy alignment. What are the key things that we need to know? And then we're going to cover the business case. So that's very important. We need to know why is this program so important? What are the contents of the business case? Who developed this business case? For what reason? Why is it so important in a program? The charter, same approach, the roadmap, and then we're going to understand the environmental factors, enterprise environmental factors, same approach with PMP. So it's just that it's in the program context. So how is the environmental assessment viewed at a program level? And then we're also going to perform a program risk management strategy. So very important, we need to do an assessment to understand what are the investment risk. This is what we want to pursue, because now you're trying to establish your strategy. So strategy, understanding the business case, understanding the the charter, and also the roadmap associated with this work, to clearly map out the best way forward. How are you going to achieve these benefits, and which projects are you going to use to help you, to enable you to deliver those set benefits? So that is the discussion. Okay, so starting with the key elements of the program. So what is important just around strategy alignment? So first, you want to understand what the strategy is all about. So what is the strategy, and what is the program initiation initiation context. And from that understanding, then you will be able to to design this program as you ensure strategy alignment. You design this program such that it is aligned to the organizational strategy, and you position it such that it will be able to deliver the expected organizational benefits. And for you to do that, there must be some understanding, of how even this program fits into the bigger portfolio picture. If your program has to report to the portfolio, so now you need to understand what is this contribution from this program that will add value to the portfolio strategy plan. Because remember, we start from strategy and then we go to the portfolio. Then the portfolio will have a portfolio strategic plan, which will then be unpacked into different programs and strategic projects. We know the setup of a portfolio. We discussed it last week. So now we need to have, when it comes to strategy alignment, because everything is about contribution. So as programs, we contribute to the portfolio, of which the portfolio has a portfolio strategic plan. But a portfolio as well is expected to contribute to the organizational strategy. As much as everything else in the end will ultimately contribute to the organizational strategy, but we need to understand our direct link, because the strategy can change. And if, for instance, the organization has got a number of portfolios, so not all the portfolios will be affected when the strategy of the organization change. So it's all dependent on the focus areas of the business that might not be relevant at that point in time as the strategy of the organization changes. So strategy alignment is all about that. So you need to make sure that your program is aligned, and it will fulfill the portfolio and organizational strategic goals and objectives. And there's also a common understanding, so there must be the skill as well to understand the program language and understand, the long-term goals of the organization, and see how the program fits into that picture. Because the portfolio, what it does, it just nicely organizes the future plans of the organization, into these bite-sized chunks, knowing that, okay, as the organization, we have this 5, 10-year goal or 20-year goal. So what the program does, then it will help the program, the portfolio, so to just quickly accomplish those specific goals of the organization, like the 5-year goal. What is that 5-year goal? So you might establish a program which will have specific projects just to accomplish that goal. And now those projects must be very much aligned, such that there must be that interdependency, because collectively, that's when you're going to be able to deliver this impact, this positive impact. So they are aligned. All those projects contribute towards the achievement of that goal, that benefit, that outcome. So that's very, very important. So that's where the interdependency, the interrelatedness comes in. So they must focus on the realization of that one, one common benefit, or they must be focused on achieving that one common goal. So that's very important. So once you've established that, then it's easier then for you to confirm the business case need as a program manager. You're confirming the need, and then later on you'll be able to then get your authority, because once your business case is confirmed as a valid, to deliver the expected benefits, because the business case will be validating, these expected benefits. Because from the portfolio, they come with a very nice story that, look, this is what we expect, and we believe that there is an opportunity for the business to realize these benefits, for instance. So now, for the business to know whether that decision is right or wrong, they need to conduct a business study, which is a feasibility study in the form of a business case. And in that process, they're going to validate the technical feasibility, the financial, viability of this investment, and then based on the understanding of the business model, the financial viability model, the program financial viability model. So they need to see the numbers and test and test the viability against the environmental factors, just to see if the risk on this investment is really worth taking. So then from there, that's when you decide, okay, regardless of the risk that the program will be exposed to, we're still going to go ahead. So and hence you will get your program approved, your program business case. Immediately you get your charter authorized as well, because as you're developing your business case, you also finalizing your charter as well. But your business case will be approved first, and then you adjust your charter based on the approved business case. You get the charter approved, then at least you will have the authority as the program manager to lead and direct this program. Thereafter, once you have your charter, then you will be able to develop a roadmap as well, because now with the charter, you will then start working on the components that you need, key decision gates that you'll need in the program, and how you're going to organize the work, because in the business case, you know more or less what needs to be achieved. So you will try to organize the work such that they are able to deliver on the expected benefits. So in this diagram, it's nicely organized. So that's where you see the link in all this. So first we start with the organizational strategic plan, so that's very important. That's outside of this space, which is strategic alignment. So organization strategic plan feeds into the program space, so it feeds into that because it needs to tell you exactly, okay, how will how the business case should be structured so that it remains strategically aligned with the motives of the organization, because the organization will initiate this program, or at least will have good intentions to initiate this program so that they can realize benefits. There is an expectation, whether if there are financial benefits or social benefits, but there are benefits linked to this program. So there is a reason. There is a clear motive. This is what we want to achieve. So in the strategic plan, it will be clearly spelled out. And now as the business case, you need to develop your business case to support that motive. And part of that, once that business case is aligned with the strategic plan, then your charter as well needs to align with the business case and the strategic plan. And the same story with the roadmap. The roadmap will also be supported by the program charter to understand exactly how the priorities are in terms of these key program deliverables, so what the program is expected to deliver and at what point, so because at least you will have a very high level understanding from the charter, because you will know high level the key milestones and what the client expectations are, or the sponsor's expectations, or the organization's expectations, so you need to understand, okay, what are the expectations? Then you structure this roadmap accordingly, so that it can be relevant to the to the client. And in the process, as you go through this, then you also understand that there's the program risk management strategy. So with the risk management strategy, it's more like the initial risk assessment. So you're looking at, as you develop the business case, you take into consideration the environmental factors, and you're also performing a risk assessment, which is just a high level, more at a business level, because at this stage you don't have sufficient information. It's more like a desktop exercise based on what you know. Then you develop, you factor that in, so that as you develop the business case or any of these key components, you take into account the risk and also the environmental factors. Then once you are done with the strategy alignment outputs, which is mainly business case, charter, and roadmap. So this is what we do during the strategy alignment. So then as you go to the to the other phases of the and this is it's strategy alignment, and this is done during program initiation, or let's say program during program formulation, so that is the standard description of it. So that's program formulation, but sometimes in the exam they might say program initiation, so you must just know this is when you are initiating the program. So thereafter, once you've now completed all of that work, you have your business case, you have your charter, you have your roadmap, then you're going to move to program management plan, which is program planning. So it's still within the definition phase of the program in the early stages, but now you're moving from initiating the program, you're going to planning the program. So all of these outputs are going to feed into the development of the plan, because at this stage, you first need to establish, why do you need this program? What is this program all about? You need to get the authority, you need to get the business case, and you need to also structure your program accordingly and know exactly how best to approach this program. So in a roadmap in terms of decisions that need to be made, and which projects do we know already at this early stage, and how we're going to execute those projects. So in a way, you already have, assuming that your program is going to be for a period of 5 years, or let's say 3 years, you already have an idea of how you're going to phase out the work and which projects you're going to finish in the first year, second and third year, and what that means as well, because now you need to ask yourself, if I finish a set of products, what influences that? Is it based on the projects that I'll be completing in the first year? Why did I choose those projects over the other projects that would be done in year number 2 or year number 3? It is based on the benefits, because each project is linked to a benefit. So if the client is telling you, I want this benefit, so now you need to organize projects that need to be completed in that year, so that you can deliver the set of benefits that are expected by this client. So that's how it works. And year number 2 as well will be based on the client's view of how they want the benefits to be phased or incrementally delivered. So that's very important. So very important. What you do first, organizational strategy. That's what you need. You need to understand the strategic plan, and then you'll be able to develop the business case, because as part of that, you will ensure that you develop your business case to be aligned to the strategic plan. And then the charter will follow immediately after the business case, and then the program roadmap will follow after the charter has been developed. And thereafter, once you have all these 3 artifacts, business case, charter, and roadmap, then you're going to develop a program management plan, because you are done initiating the program. Now you're moving to program planning, so which is more focusing now on the development of the program management plan. And as you develop the program management plan, you will ensure alignment. You will ensure alignment of the approach, because remember, the program management plan, that's the approach, that's the plan. It is also a strategy, so now you need to clearly understand exactly how are you going to approach this program, so based on what you understand from the strategy and what you've captured in the business case to ensure alignment of the program with the motives of the organization, and also the authority that you have, and also the roadmap and the risk associated with this program. Or this initiative, and also the environmental factors. You've looked at the external influences and the internal influences. So how best can you structure the program management approach so that you will be able to deliver what is expected by the organization? So how are you going to do that? So in the plan, you have this plan, you have all of this information to help you properly organize the program management plan, so that's very important. Okay, so now let's understand the important things that we need to know. So that's why I believe that it is not rocket science, because it is very straightforward, because it tells you exactly when you develop the business case, when is it developed? So if we link everything now to the program life cycle, so in the program life cycle, we have program definition, program delivery, and program closure. So we have 3 phases, but within program definition, we have 2 sub-phases. We have program formulation, which is program initiation, and then we have program planning. So program planning is program planning, and then within program delivery, so there are key things that we do. So we first thing that we do, we first need to authorize these components and then plan them. So this is now at a project level. So as a program manager, you're managing projects, all the projects that are contributing to the program outcome. So that's what you're doing. And at times you might be managing sub-programs as well, so those sub-programs will also be contributing to this outcome. So there's component authorization and planning, and then once you've done the proper planning, there will be a gate review for each project. It might not be at the same time because those projects will be initiated at different times. So, but for each project that is initiated, it needs to go through this cycle of being authorized, it must be planned, and there must be some oversight and integration. Because remember, you are managing the interdependencies amongst all these projects. So you become the change control board in the language of PMP. So you are the one providing that oversight and integration. And then once a project is completed, then you need to transition that component and close it. So that you can now the receiving organization can start enjoying those benefits. So that is the cycle. So now when we go back to the business case, so when is this business case developed? So that's very important. So as you can see, a business case is developed at that very early stage, so at the beginning of program formulation. Because remember, out of the three outputs of program strategy alignment, which is the business case, the charter, and the roadmap, the business case is the first one at the beginning of formulation as you initiate the program. The program sponsor is going to say, okay, program manager, there you go. So let's start initiating the business case so that we can get it approved, because we want to get this program authorized as well. So now for you to get the authority, you first need to validate. You need to perform that economic feasibility study to validate the benefits to be delivered by this program. So that is very, very important. So now here, the sponsor gives you the, which was called before a mandate. So after that mandate, then you'll develop that business case, and thereafter, then the charter and the roadmap will follow. So that's how it works. So now let's come to the key questions for the PGMP exam. Very important for us to note. So who creates the business case? So that's an obvious one. So that's you as the program manager, and the phase in which this is, created. So that is during the formulation subphase. It is, if you say the phase, again, it becomes technicalities. And the PMP exam, the PMI exams, maybe let me just put it that way. It is basically the same approach, because this is a program phase. Program definition is a program phase, program delivery is a program phase, program closure is a program phase, but program formulation is a program subphase. So that's a subphase. Program planning is a subphase as well. So when they say in which program phase is the business case created, so you know that they are referring to the program definition phase. But if they are talking about the subphase, then you know that it is the program formulation subphase. So that's just the difference. So again, you might know when it is created, but based on technicality, then you might trip and fall. So you just need to be wide awake when it comes to those things. And then, why is the business case created? Now we, in a way, high level, now we're going to understand why do we need to develop a business case. So as indicated earlier, because now we are in the strategy space, we want to understand how important is this program. Why is it so necessary from the strategic plan? Because now we have a strategic plan. So the strategic plan is telling us that, hey, we have these priorities and we have these good plans, and it looks like if we can if we can implement this strategy within the next 5 years, these are the benefits that the business can enjoy. So this is what we can expect. So now, because now the organization has got those big plans, obviously as part of them assessing the risk, because remember there's a risk involved as well. So they can't just go and invest without first validating whether these dreams from the strategy are indeed achievable. So they need to check whether is it technically or financially feasible in the first place. So they look at the technical feasibility of it, and they also look at the economic feasibility of it. So just to validate whether these benefits will be achievable. So that's what the business case is all about. You want to you perform that economic feasibility study. So that's the main focus, is the economic feasibility, but there's also the technical feasibility aspect, just to see, is it going to be easily implementable? More especially if now it's a greenfield program, and now there's land that needs to be accessed, because before you get the benefit, there's land, and what's the value of that land, and what is the sensitivity in that area. So I mean, want to attract too much legislative approvals, for instance, more especially the environmental approvals, and what does that mean? Want we come across protected species, and how we're going to manage that, so all of that. What is the agency as well, the window of opportunity if we are chasing a strategic opportunity in a case of an investment, so what is the window of opportunity in that case? So those are the questions that you'll be asking yourself. I think when we get to the contents of the business case, I think we're going to appreciate what goes into the business case and what we need to know. And I think even at the project level, we might be familiar with at least 60% of the contents of the business case. At the program level, it's something that we're familiar with. It's very similar to project, so nothing new. So at least we know that we create a business case so that we can test the feasibility of it, and that's the most important one. That's the economic or the financial feasibility of this investment, just to validate, because we want to establish the validity of these benefits that are expected from this program. So it is before we invest, we must first confirm. Let's allow the numbers to tell us. Let's look at the economy. Let's look at the economy. Let's look at the finances. Let's look at the environmental factors, just to see, is this really achievable? Before we even make a move. Then once the business case is approved, then which means there is a valid case to be pursued. But even though you might decide based on the available information at the time, you get your business case approved by your program steering committee, there is still the strategic alignment aspect, because remember, we continue to assess the risk, we continue to evaluate our environment, so that we can see if the environment is still the same. Because remember, in any investment, we always want to protect that investment. We're protecting this program from the enterprise environmental factors. We know we might get COVID, we might get some other force majeure situation. So now we must always be alert of the enterprise environmental factors. Yes, you make a decision now, your business case is approved, yes, but you need to now continue to check whether, is this business case still relevant, considering what's happening in the environment, considering the strategic changes within the organization? So is this business case still are all the benefits that are expected from this program still relevant? Because once the strategic plan changes, now you need to understand, okay, priorities are different, so how does that affect the benefits that are linked to certain projects? If the organization is saying, now we're no longer interested in expanding, we just want to maintain and ensure that we comply to legislative requirements. So let's just focus on safety and environmental related projects. Any expansion related project, we're going to look after it. Let's say we will consider it after 5 years, so it's in the 10-year horizon, but we only start working on it at least after year 5. So now, if your program, let's say that's a new strategy, if your program is linked to, there are some benefits that are linked to expansion, then now that's where you will revisit at a later stage. Your business case is approved. So at a later stage, when we are in program delivery, that's when now you're going to apply the strategic alignment aspect, just to see, okay, this project and that project is linked to expansion. So let me remove this, because that expansion benefit is not expected, because the economy is not doing good. So we were expanding so that we can capture a market demand. So that demand is not there. So now what is the point of even pursuing the expansion? So let us remove this project and that project and that project, because they are contributing towards that benefit, which is no longer relevant, at least at this stage, but only at a later stage. Only after year 5 we can consider exploring that. Let's defer it to year number 5. So that is the that is the importance of the business case at the program level. And then who creates the business case? So who helps create the business case? Sorry. So in this process, as you understand, you're still in the early stages of the program. So you are the only resource at this stage, and now you're getting input from the stakeholders and the sponsor. So that is your environment. You don't have a team member as yet, because remember, you don't have your charter authorized. So only when you have that authority, then you're going to start exercising your power to appoint other resources to help you. And as you know, only at least maybe when you have the roadmap, you might have a few resources, but mostly that is for planning. When you're moving from program formulation, you will have your charter, your business case, and your roadmap. Then you're going to move to planning, to say, okay, now I need these resources because I need to develop all these other plans. At least you're going to have all these different resources assigned to these focus areas, so at a program level, because your responsibility is only on the program resources. Okay, so at least we understand the link. So what is important then?
Sorry, Abosh, can you just interrupt here? Can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
The second question, in which program phase is the business case created? Can you just explain that again, man? I was taking notes and I missed that portion.
Okay, so in which program phase is the business case created? So in the program, according to the standard for program management, there are 3 phases. So we have the program definition phase, and we have the program delivery phase, and the program closure phase. So we have those 3. But now within program definition, for instance, we're defining the program. So we also have sub phases. So with sub phases, then we're going to have program formulation, which can also be viewed as the initiation. So that's where you initiate the program. And program planning, that's where you're planning the program. So what I was explaining here when it comes to in which phase is the BC created, sometimes you need to be very alert when it comes to this, because the question might be asking for a phase and not a sub phase. Because the uniqueness of program definition is that you have you have this phase and then you have the sub phase. So for instance, if you're asking in which sub phase is the a business case created, then you will know that, okay, that's straight program formulation. You can't say program definition, because program definition is a phase, it is not a sub phase. So it is just that technicality. So you need to be able to differentiate between a phase and a sub phase. And this is very important, for the, you know the answer, but because of those careless mistakes, because if we think about it, if for instance the question is just saying in which phase is the business case created, program definition and program formulation, at least they are correct answers, so whether one is a sub phase or a phase, but based on technicality, now you need to understand which one is a phase and which one is a sub phase, because you might understand, yes, it's created within program definition, but in program definition it is in the program formulation a sub phase, so that's I think it was that's what I was trying to explain, so that we understand the difference, and we understand the technicalities as well that are linked to PgMP questions when it comes to the phase and the subphase. Specifically in program definition, you will be getting a lot of these questions. So, and hence I'm spending more time on it. Okay. So I hope we're good, my leader.
No, we're good, sir.
All right, sure, man. Thanks a lot for that question. So just to recap again on how we get to the business case. Sorry. So just to recap on how we get to the point of developing a business case and how everything links together. Because remember, we're doing strategic alignment. So we're trying to align the organization's strategic plan with this business case. There must be a link, because who's funding this program? That's the organization. And now the organization is going to trust the portfolio to organize all these initiatives, and now your program will fall under some portfolio, and that portfolio will now have to ensure that this program, when it is viewed, so it is in line with the vision. So vision that is now part of the organization. So this is now from the organization, and now the mission that is from the organization. So there must be a clear long-term direction of the organization. Say, okay, as the organization, we want to be the best in this and that, so whatever aspiration the organization has. So you have that vision, and the mission, as you understand, now it becomes more tangible, so based on how the long-term direction, then now with the mission, there is at least a bit of commitment. We're getting closer to the nut and bolt, unpacking exactly how that vision is going to be realized, so then your mission statement will state exactly. So this is still at the organizational level. It's things that you need to know because you are ensuring strategic alignment. So now you understand the vision, you understand the mission of your organization that is going to benefit from these benefits your program is going to deliver. And then there's the organization, the organizational strategy. So in the organization, they will have a strategy to say, okay, as the organization, this is what we want to achieve, and these are our priorities as the organization. So this is our strategic focus. We want to achieve this, and it's so important to us. So in the next 10 20 years, these are our priorities. We've got all these big plans. So as a result, they will have a strategic plan, because they need to have a plan of how they're going to implement, these different strategies. And from that plan, it will then give you some sort of a roadmap, to say, okay, based on what we want to achieve, what is the short-term plan, what is the medium, what is the long term. So that is in the strategic plan, so it has got all these plans and how everything is going to be pursued by the organization. And then it gets into the nice detail, where it focuses on the organization's goals and objectives. Now you're getting into the nut and bolt, because you need to link goal and objectives that will ensure the realization of that, the achievement of that goal. Now, from that, we're getting to the organizational strategic initiatives. So with these initiatives, then you get into the nut and bolt. In the initiatives, you can have we need to expand, we need to address safety, we need to address maintenance, we need to reduce our cost of doing business, we need to minimize this, we need to, so it will be a number of things at the strategy level. We also need to increase our market share. We need to also minimize, customer complaints. We need to ensure legislative, it could be a number of things, that the organization wants to achieve, and there will be initiatives, because from these organizations' goals and objectives, they will be linked to initiatives. Of course, from those objectives, then there must be initiatives to support the achievement of those set objectives. So from those organizational initiative, it's a big plan. It's a very big plan at the organizational level. So at the company level. So now the company will realize that, hey, we have a very big we have very big plans. I'm just thinking of the city of Cape Town, for instance. They have very big plans, so now they have water and sanitation issues. They need to address those, and they are part of these organizational initiatives. They need to improve the situation within water and sanitation. Their road mobility network as well, so also needs to be addressed. There are some gaps in that area, and they also having issues as well with other priorities, so to provide reliable service to the communities, so to the public. So now in that case, then they will decide, okay, let's have portfolios, because this is too big, this is massive. Let's have a water and sanitation portfolio. Let's have a roads and stormwater portfolio, for instance. Let's have a or a human settlements aligned portfolio. So let's have the electricity, the electrical or retitulation or whatever the case, depending on how those portfolios are structured within the city of Cape Town. So already, out of all the things, all the plans that you have, because remember you have all these big plans, strategic plans, and you've got set objectives, and you have initiatives that will support the achievement of those objectives. So now you want to link now all of those portfolios to say, okay, now at least because I have these big plans, let me rather organize them according to portfolios. Then you have that water and sanitation, roads and stormwater, and then that's when you will have the portfolio strategic plan. So with the portfolio strategic plan, it is at the portfolio. So your portfolio will have a strategic plan. So in that strategic plan, that's when you're going to get programs, sub portfolios, even strategic projects. But in this case, we are program managers. We are interested in the formation of the programs. So your program will then be aligning itself with the portfolio strategic plan. So if there's a change in the portfolio strategic plan, then your program is also going to cough. So once this one coughs, then this one will also shake a bit. So they need to look at its plans just to see, okay, now based on this latest direction, so what does that mean to my program objectives? Does that mean now I need to remove certain projects or add more projects to enhance the benefits? Because now the new strategic direction of this portfolio is going in a different direction. So now I need to make this program relevant. So those are the discussions. So in that portfolio strategic plan, you move to the program, and then the program will then decide, okay, because now there's a motive at the portfolio, and the bigger motive is at the organizational strategy level. And now the alignment is linking strategy, strategic plan, goals and objectives of the organization, strategic initiatives, organizational initiatives of the organization, and then the strategic plan, which is at the portfolio level, the portfolio strategic plan. So as the program, we always need to ensure alignment with the portfolio strategic plan, because we report to the portfolio manager. That's our line manager, and that portfolio manager can also be a program sponsor, so that's what normally happens. So we report to that. So then once we've now confirmed our existence, or at least the need from the portfolio, then we are given that task to formalize it, so that's why we are appointed at this early stage, because now they've recognized that there's a need for this program. So at this early stage, immediately as we are identified, to be part of this program. So we are also identified during program formulation. So we are also, when we're given that assignment to say, hey, go and work on this business case. So that's when now we start, to define this program. So you work with the stakeholders, with the sponsor, in order to develop this program business case. So this is very important to understand this link. You know that everything you see up till this point, this is business. This is business. This is strategy development at a business level. And only when you get to the portfolio strategic plan, programs, and up to the business case, because from programs, from portfolio, program, and then the business case, so only here that you start seeing the link, because the program will have a direct link with the portfolio. And then from the program, then you're going to develop a business case, of which, if we were to unpack now, the next governance layer would be projects, so, or it could be sub programs and then projects, so it just depends. So this sequence is very important just to understand its strategic alignment. And I know at the project level as well, this is very this applies, so at the project level as well, so you have to understand this link and how your business case now needs to support that vision, but it won't directly support that vision. This program won't directly support that vision because it ultimately, through its efforts, it will be supporting that bigger vision, the realization of that long-term direction set by the organization. But its direct link is with the portfolio strategic plan, so not that vision, but ultimately, because you get guidance from the portfolio, not straight from the vision, but the portfolio is doing everything that is already aligned with what that vision seeks to achieve, so yeah, so very, very important. And then now coming to the contents, the contents of the business case. So when we look at these, very important, to understand. And I think you don't need to memorize all of this, but it's important just to think about your environment, how you develop your business plans or your master plans or your business cases, or any investment motivation. So you will have, like in the program context, for instance, you will have you at least you need to understand what the program outcomes are going to be, and some of the concepts. You need to understand what options do I have. What are some of those approved concepts by the organization? Because sometimes you might you're starting off, because so now you want to understand what are some of the available options, that one, or the concept of approaching this program. So what is there? As much as you're still going to conduct this economic feasibility study to explore alternative ways of pursuing this program, because you're going to look at this economic feasibility, and coupled with that, the technical feasibility as well, because you want to understand, is this even implementable? By you assessing whether the land is available, and understanding the size of the land, and also interrogating the environmental side of things, just to know if the targeted area, the land is not sensitive to the environmental legislative requirements, protected species and all of that. So you need to be very, sensitive around that. And then issues as well. At the business case level, remember, we're developing this business case, and we said we're creating this business case with the support of the stakeholders and the program sponsor. So now we want to understand issues, and the only issues they can give us, at least, it's very, business related. It's the information that they know from the portfolio. Because remember, they're not foot soldiers. They're not on the ground. So you are the one, who needs to now come with your your program management expertise, just to give proper direction, because you understand you've done this in the past, and you also have access, as much as at the program level. Now this is where now this can become a challenge for someone who's not maybe familiar with the PMP, because at least we know we're developing a business case, and it is not the first time that this organization is developing a program business case. So there must be a toolkit, at least, a program management office. There must be a toolkit. There must be archives, so the organizational process assets will be there. So that is very important to understand that part. So as you go through this, you will be using that information, and then also gathering some information from the stakeholders. But at the program level, they don't talk about that, tools and techniques. They might just, maybe when you're dealing with stakeholders, they might talk about, tools and techniques here and there, but that is not it's a principle. The focus is principle. There's no input, tool and technique, and output. So you're developing a business case. So for you to gather information, because you're getting the support from the stakeholders and also the sponsor, but for you to understand the issues, you're not just going to get those issues from the organizational process assets. You also need to understand, the stakeholders. What are their issues around this investment? what are the issues of the sponsor, for instance, so and what is the common understanding around these issues. And then you also have your high level risk and opportunity assessment, investment. Remember we said there is a program risk management strategy. So that is the initial risk assessment at that early stage, because remember the only thing that we're doing is the economic feasibility study to validate to validate these benefits, whether they will be indeed realized, and also whether there is a market opportunity, so to for these benefits to be realized, and also the feasibility, looking at the time to market. When must we go live? So at what point must we go live? So all of those things will be assessed as part of the economic feasibility study. So once you do that, you'll be able to unpack, okay, time to market, I need to go to the market by this day. Otherwise, the window of opportunity, there's the window of opportunity. If I go to the market later than, the set date, then it means I've missed that opportunity, that window of opportunity. For instance, if it's a mall, let's say your program is a mall, and your program needs to be completed by November so that you can capture the window of opportunity. December. Let's say your projections were based on 2 years that you're going to capture the market demand for December spenders and also Easter's and so we know the spending season. So if you now finish a program that was supposed to be finished in November, you finish it in Feb. I feel for that investor, because now you've lost that opportunity. Even if you finish it in January, everyone is worried about going back to school uniform, and it's only the big eaters that will be going on leave only in January here. So because they were enjoying our money, so spending patterns tend to increase for the middle class, at least during December. And then the big eaters enjoy their holidays, when we are back in the office. So that's that. So things like this, so now PMI, they're not going to tell you, okay, so for you to understand the time to market, these are the inputs, tools, and techniques. No, so you understand that, okay, for you to understand the time to market, so what will influence that? So you will understand, a number of factors, because you need to link the time to market with also the financial analysis. So with the financial analysis, how is it going to affect you? What does it cover, for instance? When you talk about financial analysis, that is the financial viability. So you understand this investment, and you also understand the market demand. So what is the demand that is out there, and now based on that demand, you also understand when you should go to the market. So there's the market demand. The demand is saying you need to complete this project by a certain date because we are waiting. We are waiting to utilize this service. And now, so based on that market opportunity, so you need to go. But I said there must be a fixed time to say, if you miss that fixed time, then that market will disappear, or it's going to be, it's going to move to someone else. So if you're late, so that's why it is so important for you to go to meet the time to market date, because the window of opportunity will be lost. So market demand will influence the time to market, because the demand is telling you can see the demand is there for this period, so I must capture it. So you need to finish the program within a certain date. And then there's also the financial analysis part. So you might have a market, there might be a market demand, but when you look at the financial analysis, you need to also understand, okay, looking at the capital cost that I need to spend in order to capture that demand, and the speed that is required for me to to go to market. So will it make sense? Because it means now I need to accelerate. I only became aware of this opportunity, and looking at my approach, I will have to accelerate. So, and it's going to be costly. Maybe this will cost me 30% more than what it would normally cost me for any other properly planned investment. So now when you work out the financial viability, the financial analysis, that's when now you test to say, okay, now considering the capital cost being 30% more than what you would normally spend, what does that mean? you know so what does that mean from an investment point of view? How does that affect the net present value? So I mean, what does that mean from that point of view? Will this investment still be relevant? Are you still going to want that diminish the business value that you're expecting? So because remember, if you're spending more, let's say you've identified that market, but you only became aware a year later, and now you need to go live within 2 years so that you can capture that market. So it's been there, but you became aware only a year later. So which is a problem. So you're already a year late, and now you need to catch up so that by year number 3, you are ready to also go live. Time to market, So it's in year number 3, but you already lost about a year. So now you need to test the financial analysis just to see, is it really worth it? What is the risk? What is the risk, and what are some of the issues that we have? What are some of the key assumptions, and what alternative solutions do we have in order to pursue this investment opportunity? So, and when we look at that, now, considering that we need to speed up things, so how best can we take advantage of this opportunity? So you list all the alternative solutions that are there, so to execute this program, understand the options, option A, B, C, and then you subject all of that to a cost-benefit analysis, and maybe later on a multi-criteria decision analysis if you want to select the go-forward option. So that is now the best approach to implement this program. And then you will also have your intrinsic and extrinsic benefits. So with intrinsic, which are the ones that are more internal, so one can also view this intrinsic as more the tangible ones, and then the extrinsic, that's more the intangible ones, which are more that will come as a result of you performing this program. Employment creation, short-term employment, because now you have to, as you are chasing these tangible benefits, then employment will be created. You're going to improve the economic, setup of that local municipality, because now you're investing 20 billion. So obviously now there will be more, like for instance, people in the in people in the, what is this industry called now? Hospitality space. They will now have their hotels, their B&Bs fully booked. So that is now a positive impact to that local community, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of expansion work going on. So now that is the benefit. That's part of the extrinsic. By you expanding or working on this program, it will have a benefit. Even local filling stations, now they are always, they need to fill their stations more than they normally do, because now the volume of people that are in that area, the demand to be in that space is more, let's say for the next 10 or 20 years, because there is an expansion going on. So those types of benefits will obviously now influence this investment. So you unpack all of that detail. That's the kind of discussion. So as you now developing a program business case, that's the type of discussion you want to understand. Okay, what will be the business and operational impact if we implement this program? What will be the impact? So positive or negative impact. So you need to unpack that as well. Will it add value? Will it increase? Will it change the business model? Will the company work better? So it's more like systems analysis or value analysis. So that's what it is. But now we are at a program level, so we speak English. So now, because Now we're pitching it at that strategic level. So we're calling it business or operational impact, but all that you're trying to understand, it's value analysis or systems analysis, systems engineering, so that's what you do. You analyze the system so that you can see before you do anything, what is the setup, and once you now, complete your project, what will be the improvement? It's just that now you're adding numbers. You're not looking at it from a technical point of view. You add or just the operational point of view. You're adding the numbers to say, okay, no, we're gonna do things faster, and us performing faster with a set demand, then it means we're gonna capture more. So we'll be able to make more money. That means more revenue. So that means more profits, potential profits. So I think what I'm trying to show with all of these, key elements is that each and every element, there is a scenario linked to it. You need to understand why is it there. You don't have to memorize, so it's something that is relevant within your space, and with the project understanding, and also putting yourself in the shoes of an investor. So with that understanding, you will be able to link all of this, so to say, okay, if I'm developing a business case, for this business case, for me to spend my 20 billion, what would be contained in the program outcomes, in the approved concepts, under issues? What would be the discussion? What will I be maybe worried about? So all of those things. What would be my assumptions? So all of that. It's things that you need to understand so that you can be comfortable. So it's all about being comfortable. So yeah. So otherwise, so just to check, Mr. Macha, from your side. At Transnet, like I understand, before you were more of an implementing agent, but working very closely with your clients, and I'm sure at some point contributing to the business case development. So when you look at these contents, how familiar are you, in this, in this area, and how does it add value to you as a project manager or as someone who's driving this initiative to understand the bigger picture, and also be able to engage your stakeholders? So what is your experience around this, and what is your involvement in any of these components?
Thank you, Abongile. From my side, good evening, everyone, again. From my side, I think if I look at the business case contents and the outline of these various elements to it, they look very much familiar, although I must say there's quite a number of, I think, terminologies that I can make sense of, but they're not really the same as one would expect, because I think of its very nature that we're dealing with a more American-based methodology. So we should expect some terminologies that are used that are not the same as what we're doing. But from my side, I must say, as I stated last week as well, that the way that the organization is treating most of the projects, and sometimes most of the programs, is that they are managed more as if they are projects. And as we speak, as I think it's quite relevant to the question that you just posed to me, is that if you follow how the PMP is structured, particularly when it comes to the business case, is that project managers mostly provide some inputs in some instances for those business case. And I'm seeing myself that currently we go as far as having to go through the business cases not only provide the inputs that normally come from exercises that project managers are pretty much familiar with, like setting schedules and plans for the project, and then providing inputs into the business case. So with that being said, I think it gives one a more understanding in terms of how the business case is put together. The only part that Abongile, I'm not familiar at this very moment is that how much of work goes into, for example, the financial analysis exercise at this very moment when it comes to putting together a business case, because I would imagine that those are based on a very high level models and simulations, and not necessarily something that comes after you've done a full feasibility study. I do, though, take into consideration that one would expect that these are also done in an incremental approach in some instances where, the more you move forward with the plans, the more detail comes out of those exercises. Thank you very much, Alongit.
Well, thanks a lot, Joy, for that. Look, very relevant and a very good reflection of how things should be, and some of the common challenges that we continue to experience because of the misalignment in some of these processes. Obviously, yes, as you indicated, with PMI being more American standard, and we also have our way of doing things. So there are some areas where one can say yes, maybe they're not applicable, and there are areas where we can benefit. And you're very correct. I like your analysis, because then it speaks to the environmental, the continued strategic alignment that is expected from the program manager, because as you are in this early stage, you're still in this early stage of the program, so you're still in this early stage, so you don't have a plan, you don't have a cost, you have an indication of the capital cost and all of that information. So for you to test the viability, using the capital cost, just to see if this program is indeed justifiable, if there is a compelling financial case to even pursue this program. So obviously at the stage, as you indicated, spot on, high level information, but as you get to program planning, at least you're going to have some improved accuracy, on your costing, and also the time to market. For instance, you will have an idea of your schedule, because you understand things better, because you had a team. It's not a desktop exercise. You had to go through some stuff, and you will at least now adjust your strategy, your strategic alignment. Your business case will need to be adjusted, and your charter, and also your roadmap as well, to align, everything to reflect the latest accurate information, so that's very, very important. And then of course, it doesn't end there. So when you are in program delivery, there's still that expectation that you will also ensure that, as part of ensuring strategic alignment, as you are in program delivery, what are you going to do? What is going to change, in your business case? What will influence changes in your business case? Then as you authorize these components, because remember, you have an idea of the high level estimate, because now during planning, the accuracy that you have is that at least now you've estimated some components to say, okay, I have 20 components and roughly it should cost this much. Let's say you just used an analogous estimating technique for your schedule, for your durations, and then also for your costing, as well. So you just, let's say, use or let's say parametric. If you have your base information, maybe that's the confidence you have. You use parametric, or maybe use analogous estimating technique, just to have something, of which you know, it's acceptable at a program level. That's the best. That's the best guess. But when you get to you know, component authorization and planning, you know, in program delivery, then now once you have those project management plans for each component, you know, so assuming that you have component projects only, so once you have those components, then they will also influence, because now the accuracy is improved. So your program management plan, as much as it was an input into program delivery, it will also be updated during this phase, because now the accuracy is improving as you get more information on these components. And then what will that mean? Then you will need to also revisit your business case, because you have detailed costing, you have detailed schedules, you have all of that detailed information. So your financial analysis will need to be adjusted accordingly to reflect the latest available information. Even within the business, maybe the overheads might change, you know, because as we understand, they are always exploring cost containment strategies, for instance, and also the public and private sector participation in certain operational areas, you know. So if you decide, let's say the business comes up with a different model, which will then show that you know, if we partner with a different supplier, then we don't have to, you know, it will be less expensive for you as a business. You know, as a result, you will be spending less in that operational area than when you are managing it on your own. So by inviting the private sector to operate or to work in a certain area and reducing your overheads, already that will influence your financial analysis, you know, because now your cost is going to be far less than you know, than originally planned, you know. So that is a very good one, you know, because I think what we need to appreciate in this discussion is that you are in the early stages of the program. You're developing a business case, and you will have this information, you know, high level information, you know, based on the available information at the time. But once you go into planning, you know, you're going to perform this economic feasibility study, yes. But when you get into planning, there will be some areas that will need to be adjusted. And as we know, you know, so we in program definition, that's where we develop things and at least have some form of baseline. But once we go to program delivery, we understand that there's the environmental assessment that will be ongoing to ensure continued alignment of the program effort with the you know, portfolio strategic plan, but ultimately the organization's strategic goals and objectives. So now in that effort, so we always need to check so that as we get more information, then we adjust our business case, we adjust our charter, we adjust our roadmap, you know. So that's very important. But when we look at everything, very spot on, Joy, in your interpretation, you know, you have to be flexible, and environmental factors, very spot on. As you move with the program, you know, you will be able to make the necessary adjustments accordingly. Otherwise, Kabela, from your side at Eskom, so in the generation space, what's the involvement of QSs in the development of business cases? Any familiar contents in this program business case? I would say template.
I'm not familiar with it, boss. I was trying to look and to relate to what my fellow colleague said, and I don't relate, especially in the generation issues. I know they've got what they call as GOIC. It's generation investment. It's generation investment committee, or like the IM committee, where they do the business cases. But I've never been part of it. But I know that normally what they do to do these business cases, they mainly rely on historical information, or like previous projects, whatever they've done, and then they escalate them. But I don't really know much in detail.
Okay, no, thanks a lot. And then I'm assuming, I'm just trying to understand the role of project development. Are they part of group capital, or you know, I know at some point, you know, I'm not sure whether project development were a standalone unit that was busy with business case development and also initiating these big initiatives, whether it's a project or a program, up to a certain stage, and then hands it over to some execution leg, so to execute from ERA stage. Because I'm still trying to understand, you know, so what was the involvement of business development? Were they part of the group capital, or were they a
Group
standalone
capital.
unit? Group capital. Okay.
They doing group. Remember, a group capital also service generation, but does that they execute mainly the 300 and above million rand project. So there they will have all the other the business development department, etc. And now what has happened is that group capital is an independent entity, as you know, and then you've got then there's the other generation, distribution, and transmission. But group capital will somehow will still be an independent entity within generation.
Okay. No, I get it. So basically, yeah. When I look at the ESCOM setup, my assumption is that then group capital would be best positioned to develop business cases than to leave it with the divisions, you know. So is that the case?
You are spot on, Abosh.
Yeah. Hey. So basically, because you see, with group capital, you see there's conflict of interest there, you know, because in a way, you know, if business development or project development is part of group capital, so group capital is more of an implementing agent for ESCOM, for instance. So now, how can they develop a business case and then, you know, manage this business case up to a certain point? You know, so, but yeah, it's a business model. I think that's one thing that I think Transnet did very well, in that they managed to you know, to separate, to clearly delineate that responsibility. So the business units or the operating divisions were responsible for any business case development work, and then once that business case was approved, only then you will get your Transnet Group capital, you know, to implement, whether it's a program or it's a project. So, but yeah, I think I understand, you know, the setup in group capital, because I think even finance, the finance functions at some, I think there were, I still recall when Paul, what was that guy again? Paul something. I think he was a finance director at some point. I know he was moving from being that finance to group capital. And then I was like, you know, there was just a lot of conflict of interest, I believe, you know, because if you are an implementing agent, then you can't be mixed up in such financial matters, because you're more like a referee and a player at the same time. So there's conflict there, you know. So you need to account solely just for one thing, you know. You can't be you know, subjected to, you know, that setup, you know. But anyway, yeah, it's, organizations don't have to be perfect, but you know, it's just interesting. You see, that's why we always get frustrated at program and project level, because now that conflict, you know, because that's conflict there, where there's conflict of interest. So that's why now alignment becomes an issue, you know. So because in such cases, you know, how the implementing agent having an influence in aligning strategies when they are also role players in the implementation, you know, so it becomes a bit tricky. But anyway, yeah, no, thanks a lot, Kabela, for that. So highly appreciated.
Just for me to interject there, Abongile, you are quite aware that we've undone the split with the reorganization of Transnet, and I would say we now where my colleague has just expressed, to say, you know, we now having that element of the conflict of interest, if you like to put it that way.
Yeah, with the cradle to grave approach, disbanding, yeah, yeah. No. It's true. You see, yeah. It's on the one side, it's but yeah, it's a very
Tricky
it's
one. Let's
it's
put
a
it that
it's a
way. It's a tricky one.
it's a tricky one because you see, because I'm just thinking, because that's exactly what we were doing. I think it was better when we were more of because we, even though we were
Implementing agent alone.
yes, because we're a project. Because I'm just thinking, because I was part of the project management office within the client space. So we were operating in a more, I would say, a strong matrix. I would say it's a strong matrix because there were other departments, and then we had our project division, where project managers. We didn't have any other resources. TGC then would be a more projectized organization. So now in that setup, then it was better because we were leading the business case development, and then TGC was not involved, Transnet Group Capital. So then there was no conflict. But because now because now the divisions have all of those expertise, then that's where the conflict is. Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct, Abongile. And this is where, even with the business cases context in terms of this discussion, is that we're ending up having a situation where the project team is expected to give so much effort into modeling things like the financial analysis, things like the planning of the project, where we're spending a lot of time creating plans that I sometimes feel they too much detail and too much effort goes to it. Whereas with the business cases, because you estimating well in advance, and we know that with progressive elaboration, you then get details much later, and you should at least limit the efforts that go into these. But if you both, the referee and the player, you sometimes over, spend efforts which are not necessarily informed in this instance, and cause a lot of back and forth in terms of the processes, because you having someone senior sitting in the business case review that's telling you that this estimate or this allowance in terms of time is it's not correct, it's too long, or it's too much, or because they bringing a lot of experience from being an executing agent, and now they're sitting or forming part of the business case reviewers, and they're bringing about experience that's not meant for this stage. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, Abungile,
No,
and the team.
no,
Thank you.
no, no. It's a it's a frustration, because it's and I think that is exactly what is happening. Yeah. No, I feel for project managers. Yeah, because it's a frustration. Because I mean, you know that you can't. Someone is part of that investment forum, or CAPEC. So they are not just executives, for instance. They're not just senior executives. They've been on the ground. They understand the details. So you can't go and present something that is wishy-washy. You have to be clear. And sometimes, if you're going to present a business case won't be that detailed because you're still going to put in some work. But because they know there is a similar project, let's say you missed the organizational process assets and you did not use all the available information. If I'm in Richards Bay, for instance, I'm going to focus on projects that are in Richards Bay. I'm not close to the detail in Saldanha, in Eastern Cape, Durban, and so forth. There might be a similar project, but because they are managing things at a much strategic level, and they know, there is this information exists. Sometimes as well, we can also blame our knowledge management systems. In fact, the organization's knowledge management system, and also how we utilize that information as well. It might be there, but because it's more of a pull communication type of approach, you need to decide what is relevant. You need to educate yourself about the knowledge repository so that you can be able to access, the information whenever you need. So sometimes you don't know what is there, and how are you going to capacitate yourself with the right knowledge so that you can be able to access that information when needed. So sometimes, the information is there, but because, you don't use it, then it becomes a problem. And now those guys sitting at those committees, they know all these projects, and it becomes for a project manager. But anyway, yeah, it's I think it's one of those, and challenging the status quo. And I think there is a benefit to the business, but more a frustration for the project managers and the business case writers, because now they will be expected to improve the accuracy of their information, specifically in the costing, in the baselines, costing schedule, and also the scoping, because there's also that tendency of saying, let's do a conditional assessment, or at least if it's high level, scoping, then at least you do have an internal engineering team, so they should be able to do it because they are paid by the business anyway, so it's not like you need to capitalize their cost like before you can actually utilize them. They are part of the business, they are covered by the overhead, so they must they must do the work so that you can improve the accuracy of the business case. So in a way, the expectations within the business as well, create this complexity. Yeah, but anyway, no, a good discussion. Thanks for that, Joy. Tsholofelo, from your side within the city, I'm just trying to check in master planning. I haven't actually worked in the municipal or metro space, and I fully appreciate the fact that your projects are not so driven by profits, but addressing some social needs and so forth. So I'm just trying to understand when you're trying to motivate for a project, or like, let's say, a program or a group of project in some master plan. So what becomes the key driving factors, to motivate for those projects to be pushed forward? So I'm just trying to, what are those key things? When you look at the business case contents here, are there any common elements that you can say, yeah, this is what we focus on, or maybe is there a different system that you guys are using in the city of Cape Town? So what would be your reflection when you look at the business case contents? In that,
Babosh, you put me in a tight corner. How do I say this? Look, I'm not going to answer your question. I mean directly, but all I can say is that from our side, I believe that most programs are managed using a project management approach. Even though we have project managers, I don't think most of the guys that we have as project managers have got or have undertaken program management training. And also, I think most of the project managers, how do I say this? Like in our case, okay, at the city, most of the project managers, we manage three or four projects of different size, duration, and complexities. We are using project management approach. Even though the city is now beginning to have program managers, but those managers, program managers, are appointed by virtue of them having managed a number of projects in the past, not necessarily because they have program management experience.
but They are senior project managers.
Yes, they are senior manager. Yeah, they are senior project managers, even though they have the title project managers. Yeah, and then our business case. I mean, the business case that what drives our project or the business case is most of the time will be because we are not profit driven. It will be the need. Like for example, in the big project that I'm managing, Kailisha at the moment has only Kailisha as a township as a whole has only one supply point. Now the project that I'm currently busy with is the construction of an additional pipeline. You know, should anything happen to this existing pipeline, we are going to be Kailisha is going to be in a big trouble. Hence, we decided to have this project. I think that is what actually that is the business case in my case for this project. Yeah, that is my contribution, Abosh. I'm still learning a lot, man. I'm still, you know, like as I mentioned to you, project management is I'm more of an engineer man than a project manager. I'm warming up to this project management training. You know, I hope you understand. That's why it's so difficult sometimes to sort of connect the dots or to provide a satisfactory explanation for the benefit of all. But at least I'm trying.
No, my leader. Look, I think we can all appreciate the fact that only a few organizations adopt the program management approach, you know, in South Africa. You know, it's only like very few. And I think, you know, Transnet being one of them. And as much as Eskom established a program management framework, but it is not, that is now within the built environment space. So as much as Transnet, Eskom, you know, has I think they developed something in their center of excellence. But whether that was implemented, Kabel, if you can assist, I'm not sure. At some point, I know they developed some standards and systems for projects when they were updating the PLCM. So they updated the programs and portfolios. But I'm not sure whether that is now fully implemented. So whenever I engage with, with my you know, other candidates from Eskom. So it looks like even the PLCM, which is the project lifecycle model, is not fully implemented because of challenges with capacity. They don't have sufficient resource capacity to implement all of those systems, you know, so they're not relevant for the distribution business, for instance, but maybe in transmission and your generation type of investment or the investments managed by group capital, it might be relevant. So yeah. So I'm not sure. I'm Kabza.
Yes, but it was not fully implemented due to various reasons, and one being the capacity played a role there. And we tried more in a project level, and it becomes a serious case in this. Like now, when you're talking about the program level, we now let's say 75% on project level was implemented, but on program level, then we're really suffering. It's almost not there. But on the project management level, it's let's say 75%, especially when you look at the generations. Even though there might be dark clouds there and there in other projects, but 75% of the project management practices has been implemented, or the PLCM, 75% of it was implemented.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Tim Cubs. Okay. So yeah. So I think you know, yeah. Looking at that, you know, so you can see that, you know, as much as it's a good concept, but it's very expensive. And like even Transnet, they invested in that system, but they explored it in you know, a few programs, now it's no longer, it is there and for someone to use, but it is very expensive because now you expect, like at a program level, that those are big eaters. Committee members are big eaters. So like for instance, a program that I was part of, in Transnet, CEOs of these operating divisions and senior executives, they were permanent members, but I think they only attended just one meeting. Thereafter they were just delegating other senior executives that are reporting to them. So you can just imagine that was one program alone. And Freight Rail also had massive programs, and other divisions as well, also had programs. So it eats up your capacity, because it's like you have the portfolio steering committee, which could be your excos, for instance. Ideally, if you were to follow this theory without tailoring it, you would need to have your excos managing the organization strategy, and then you have your portfolio steering committees, and then you have your program steering committees, and then your project steering committees. So now, because of the limitations when it comes to resources, you will end up having the same people, at the same resource senior executives sitting at the portfolio steering committees and at EXCO will also be needed in all these different programs. Then they will end up not focusing on their core functions, so which then becomes, impossible. It's not feasible to implement, the program approach because of its demands, governance demands, because now you're creating another governance layer. But as part of tailoring, you have to be creative as well, and tailor the system to say, okay, maybe on the governance aspect, you will accept that for instance, approval of business cases. You can use the same portfolio, portfolio steering committee for those approvals. You don't need a program steering committee, and the same powers for a program steering committee. If there is a need for one to go and present something, then the powers of that program steering committee can be given to that portfolio steering committee, because in any case, each and every program gets presented to that portfolio steering committee, so that's standard practice. So you just need to delegate the powers. So you tailor governance, because the issue is more around decision making and that reporting. Because if you have a sponsor, that's good enough. But then the other senior executives can make a decision as part of that steering committee. You just empower the program sponsor to make certain decisions, but anything exceeding the decision-making threshold of that sponsor, then you take it to the highest level, which is that portfolio steering committee. That's it. But that committee will be as part of when you're developing your governance plan or your model, you will understand that, okay, your reporting, your escalation will clearly indicate that, okay, this is our limitation as the program based on the sponsor's delegation. Anything outside of that needs to go to that portfolio steering committee. So the program recognizes that committee as the highest delegated group. So that's it, you tailor, so that's why tailoring is very, very important, because you can't just decide that you won't use the program approach because it is expensive, so we need to be creative. There must be appetite, from seniors, to make it work. But because that governance make senior executives account, and they don't want to account for bad investment decisions. There are a lot of bad investment decisions, and they don't want to account for that. So that is the reality of the situation. But anyway, I think that was a very good discussion. Mr. Macha, I'm not sure whether you wanted to add.
Yes, Abongile, and you've hit my point just on that last one that you made about accountability. That's what one is sensing out of this whole, view of not necessarily favoring the program management. And I think one of the obvious reasons one is doing this exercise or going through this pain of understanding program management and eventually getting the professional registration or accreditation for it, would be to advocate for it. Just on the other point, the second point that I wanted to make was the question of the business case, the program business case. I would imagine that if one is approaching the program business case with the various components, which would be your projects as subcomponents to your program, is that you would then not necessarily have to have business cases for each project. Just give me a view there, Abongile, or would it be a case where you have to still have sub business cases for those sub components, which would be for your projects? Can you give me
No, a very good one, there, Joy. For instance, I think let me start with the PMI understanding and then go into what we did in a previous program, what made sense because we had to tailor, So according to PMI, they are saying we need to, because we come up with this approved business case clearly indicating all the components that will be needed, so whether it's a program, sub-program, or a project, so at least we will have all of that approved upfront to say, okay, these are the components that will be part of this. So the expectation from PMI is that you need to now develop those business cases. They might not be as detailed. For instance, you won't be justifying. You'll just say, okay, because the program, for instance, has already justified the outputs of the outputs of each component. So it will just be a matter of if you're looking at strategic fit, for instance, and the business need and all of that, the justification will be the program, so all of that will be covered. So when you present, it will be more like a project initiation, a kind of document, so it's not a fully fledged, comprehensive business case. It will just be a project initiation just to show the deeper detail, that was not available when this business case was developed, so I think your interpretation, and I think it's more around supporting tailoring, to say it doesn't make business sense or it wouldn't, justify that added effort when you already have a framework at a program level to now still develop, these different business cases, So again, your governance, when you develop your program governance plan or model, you will then have to come up with you come up with a proposal. You tailor to say, okay, according to the organizational process assets, this is the proposed approach as a standard. All components need to develop business cases and demonstrate strategic alignment, so whether it's within the portfolio or with the program. So in this case, we already have a business case and all these projects are motivated by, this, this objective. So now we want to present a consolidated business case, to say, okay, all of these projects, this is the cost, this is the schedule, this is the high level scope, and they are all interrelated. And, depending on your governance, you can agree that, okay, that would be the approach. If that is agreed during program planning, that's how you're going to present your, that's how you're going to initiate your components, and that's how they will be authorized, then yes, you can just use the program business case to justify and just have maybe just a project initiation or component initiation request, which will then be scrutinized. So now you will have to go through that component initiation template to say, okay, what needs to go in there, to motivate. You might not demonstrate strategic alignment because the program has already done that and there's no benefit or justifying. It will just be the technical aspect, I think, and that is what we did with the Richards Bay expansion program, so we did exactly that because we presented a sustaining program business case for instance, for safety, for environmental, for and I think there were a couple of other, or revenue protection, but it's just that all of them, it's just the way they were classifying them. So we had to break them down, and then we prepared a consolidated submission, presented it, and then it was accepted at that level, because that was the governance plan that we proposed to them, to say this is how we're going to approach it. They accepted the approach first, and then when we then presented that sustaining business case, it was just approved. So we just needed to go to CAPIC to say, okay, now we're ready with this project. So here's a project initiation request, which is a mini business case. It has all the elements, but not the justification. You didn't have to justify why this is needed, the need and all that, because already they know it's in the list of the program components. So yes, I mean, to answer you, Joy, the standard for program management expect you to develop a business case, but they're not calling it a business case. They're just saying component authorization. So for you to authorize that component, it then depends on you. So to say, how do you authorize a component at that program level? So it is through a business case. So that's what normally, but you can, through your governance plan, you can adjust, because as you understand with PMI, it is not always the case. There is flexibility, so there might be a standard way of doing things by developing a business case, but that is not all the time, so you can propose an alternative way of doing it, and then once it's accepted, as long as it is accepted, it has been approved, by the authorized committee to follow that approach in a governance plan or in that governance model, then that will be the way to follow in your program, in your unique program, because you've tailored it and you presented that approach, and that governance model was supported. So that's how it is approached, and how we've done it as well in reality was through tailoring, because it didn't make any sense to duplicate the effort, basically. So I think I fully understand.
Understood, Abongile, and I'm aligned to that as well. I mean, a program, a business case, still satisfies the business case objective, even though it's sitting at the program level, and it's for that reason, because it encompasses all these various related projects and possibly programs or sub-programs, and I wouldn't see a need to still go ahead and have what you want to call project business cases for those sub-components. It wouldn't make sense, but I understood correctly. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Joy, for that contribution. Okay, so I think now we'll just cover the program charter. So if we can maybe just take a 5-minute break, and then we're just going to sprint through the program charter before we dial off. I think it should take us to 8:30. Okay, so we'll be back at 19:45. Thank you. Okay, I'm sure everybody's back. Okay, so I see Tato Hatze. Okay, but she will join us shortly. Okay, so I think we covered the contents of the business case, and some of the things that you might want to just go through in understanding the PMI interpretation of what a program business case is and what it does. So you just need to go through all of this, and basically it summarizes what we already know. So when you go through it, it will just be a confirmation. Sometimes for exam purposes, because sometimes it might be your answer might be linked to some line of this or some understanding of the business case contents, or the interpretation of that. So this basically just covers the different links to the program business case, and just for exam purposes, so it will help you to at least to better understand it, and be able to select, because sometimes they will want to, you will need to identify some of the contents of this business case, or the situation. Which document should the program manager use to address the situation? Or you're looking for an economic feasibility study, or you're looking for a formal declaration of the value that the program is expected to deliver. So you need to understand that. I think this is where maybe one needs to memorize, if there is anything to memorize. But based on your understanding of the contents, then at least by recognizing these, it will be much easier for you to recall all of them, because they are pretty much straightforward. I think once you go through them, of course. Okay, so I think we spend too much time on the business case for a valid reason. It is a key component. Strategic alignment is very important. So hence we needed to spend more time, so that we get all the different perspectives and how we move it from definition all the way to closeout and program delivery, how it becomes relevant, as we consider the environmental factors and some of the other risk elements that are affecting the investments. Okay, so now we're going to touch on the program charter. So now, who creates this program charter? So that's the big question, and it's very nice that we must always link it to the program life cycle. So program definition phase, all of that is still happening in the program definition phase and within program formulation subphase. So who creates this program charter? That's you as the program manager. And in which program phase is the program charter created? So it's created still in the formulation subphase. So that's where you create all of these in that formulation subphase. And then, why is this program charter created? And we know from PMP, PgMP, PFMP. So whenever there's a charter, we want to assign and authorize a responsibility. So in this case, it is a program charter. So we are assigning and authorizing a program manager. And we also want to measure program success. We understand that there will be clear program objectives and there must be success criteria linked to that. So PMP, PFMP, PgMP, same story, same interpretation. The concept, what is a charter? So it is just there to authorize, assign, authorize, measure program success. Success criteria will be part of that. And what does it authorize? So in this case, we understand that it's authorizing you to use organizational resources, and also to initiate these components. Because remember, once you now get that charter authorized, when you are let's say in planning, or let's say even in the definition phase, you will also understand, okay, now you can initiate certain components that you feel need to be part of the program at the early stages of before you even go to program delivery, so before program delivery, you will have an idea of some of the components that need to be initiated to assist, as part of planning. Maybe they can't wait till the program delivery. Then you will have those unique cases where you need to initiate those components, but majority of the components will be initiated during program delivery as part of that component authorization and planning, so that's where you focus on the authorization of these components. But your charter is just there. It gives you the authority to get more resources and also to initiate these components, and also have some framework as well, so that you'll be using to initiate these components, so it gives you the power. In fact, it gives you the power to make decisions. That's the most important thing. And now when we look at the standard for program management, we will realize a few things, that in the strategic alignment section, so it will consider these contents of the program charter. But when you go to the program life cycle, then you will see that there are also other elements, so which are not necessarily there, so of which one can view it as maybe it's inconsistencies, or now that you are in the program life cycle, maybe you will have more information, so there's because remember, as you ensure strategic alignment, so all of this is done in line with the program life cycle, so you are in formulation, you are creating this charter, so you're busy developing this charter. So whether it's a strategy or in alignment, so you ensure strategic alignment in program formulation, so it's not like it's a standalone domain, so you manage a program according to the program life cycle. So this is it. You're creating that charter, so that is, you're following the program life cycle, so it is there. So by you creating that charter, that's part of you ensuring strategic alignment. That's a strategic alignment output. So you want to ensure that this program is strategically aligned, and there's a common understanding on the program mandate, what needs to be achieved, what the success criteria are, what the objectives are, and so forth. So that's why you are creating this charter. So it is in line with the program life cycle. So what this is, and the understanding as well, from the global community, is that there is a it's just one of those that sometimes with PMI, there will be some inconsistencies, in the standard for program management, so it's not perfect. There will be inconsistencies, but I think what is important, because what we've done, we've tried to identify areas where there are commonalities. For instance, with the program scope, in strategic alignment, so in the strategic alignment section, the program scope is viewed as important, same in the PLC. And I think assumptions is also assumptions and constraints also considered, and high level risk. So that's also very important. Risk are also reflected, and the high level and the high level benefits. So they're also reflected in the PLC. And you also have the timing, the timeline, very important. Key stakeholders, stakeholder consideration, and yeah. So basically, okay. I don't know what's going on now. Okay, so basically, when you look at these two, you will appreciate that it's important that when you think about the contents of a charter, you need to consider these as well. So it's not like when you're talking about strategy alignment and when you're talking about the program life cycle, then there will be two different charters, or the interpretation will be different. Whatever that's missing here, you need to make sure that you understand, there is a common understanding of the contents of a charter. So as you can see, they don't have, on this side under PLC, PMI did not include the success factors, for instance, of which we both understand that when we're talking about the goals and objectives, so there must be a link of these goals and objectives to the success criteria, for instance. So very, very important. But here it's not reflected. So just because it's not, it does not mean that it's not important. It's something that needs to be considered. Very, very important. So we can't leave it out. And I think there's another element, for instance, on this side, they don't have the goals and objectives. In fact, these two, success factors and goals and objectives, you just can't afford not to have that. So it must be part of that. So it's just for you to know that whether it's on this side or that side, at least all these contents, you understand that they are all important in a charter, and they are very, very relevant, to help you, effective. In fact, first to get the authority and get some alignment with the stakeholders, common understanding. So what is important, I think, for us to note specifically on the PLC. So you will realize that this charter will have a justification. So this justification, as much as they're not talking about inputs, tools and techniques and outputs, but from this justification, you get it straight from the business case. You will know why your program exists, and now you will need to come up with a vision. The business case does not have a vision, so you need to now sit with decision makers and understand what is the program vision. So your program vision will need to be strategically aligned with that of the portfolio and that of the organization. So that is the expectation. So based on what you want to achieve as a long-term direction. So because remember now, for a program of, let's say, 10 years, so that's a long time. So there must be some vision. You need to know exactly how you're going to get to that 10 years. So you need to lay a very solid foundation that will help you, clearly understand and unpack the detail to your program team, to understand how everything is going to transition from the current state to that future end state. And then with the strategic alignment, you have that information from the business case, because you already developed that business case to confirm the relevance of this program when they look at all the other initiatives of the business within the strategic plan. So they view that, okay, this is important. And then that's it. You just you put that one line confirming strategic alignments or strategic fit. It's because, this program will have this significant contribution to the overall strategic plan and other motives of the organization, which are already catered for in the strategic plan. So, and then the benefits, you know the benefits and the list of those benefits, intrinsic and extrinsic benefits, and then the scoping, what's in the scope. So in the scope, as much as they might not be clear, but when you look at a program charter, so in the scope, you need to clearly know what is in the scope, what is outside of the scope, what's in scope and out of scope. So because it's so important, so that there is a common understanding of what the program will deliver and what it will not be accountable for. And then there's the strategy for benefits. So at this early stage, remember, you don't have a benefit management plan. So and now a charter is giving you like a high level understanding of how so a high level understanding of how the benefits will be approached on the program. What is the strategy on these benefits? So now, how are we going to phase? Is it going to be incremental, or is it just going to be that one big bang? So now we can already think about, if we were in the project space, the development life cycles, where we either approach it in a more incremental approach or in a more agile, where we deliver those smaller increments so that the customer can enjoy the benefits while we're still working on this project, on this product. Or is it going to be incremental? Is it going to be more adaptive? Or is it going to be more predictive? We're just going to deliver these benefits once off, that's it. So what will be the strategy? Are we Is it going to be once-off, incremental, or what will be the approach? So it needs to be agreed upfront, because before you can be given that permission, before you can be authorized and your assignment is confirmed, there must be a common understanding, with the stakeholders and the sponsor. There must be a common understanding of how everything is going to be approached, so that when you go into program planning and developing the benefit management plan, your program benefit management plan, then at least it's basically just you applying what has already been confirmed by the stakeholders and the sponsors, so that's very important. And then your assumptions and constraints, same story. In whether it's a project or program, same interpretation. You capture assumptions and constraints as you understand them, how they affect the program, and anything that you believe to be true at this point in time, and you capture it in the assumptions and constraints log, with the understanding that at a later stage you need to clearly indicate a date to say, okay, I'm putting this assumption, but for me to validate whether it's true or not, it will only be when we get to this point. Then you put it, you put a date so that you can always keep track of the movement, when the validation exercise needs to be done, so this is very important, more especially on the baselines, whenever you assume something, and stakeholder management, you assume something, then at the right time you need to act. Otherwise, once you miss it, then it might end up affecting all the other deliverables. And then components, as we understand, we have not actually initiated any components at this stage. We're assuming that this is a more of a greenfield type of program. It's because of a strategy, and now you're only going to start identifying these components. So at this stage, you're listing all the components that you believe should be part of the program that will help deliver the benefits expected. So it's just high level, so you don't have a comprehensive list, but you do have an idea of, based on the scope and the benefits expected, then you will have some indication of these components. And then there will be some risk and issues. At this stage, it's more investment related risk, so you don't have that much detail. But at a later stage, when you get to program delivery, then everything changes, because now you understanding some of the other elements of risk that are affecting the implementation of the program, affecting a number of components within your program. So you need to manage the risk and issues so that you can minimize the impact to the program components. And then the timelines, resources needed, so all of these elements, when you look at them, very, very important. And you just need to have that common understanding with your stakeholders and the sponsor. So these two are not covered, but as you understand, the interpretation at the PMP level is still the same. Goals and objectives, there must be a link to the success factors or success criteria. So there must be that common understanding of what will enable this program to succeed. So what will be those key indicators, to confirm that, okay, indeed this program was a success. So that's very, very important. And then now coming to this, some of the things that we need to know for the exam. So with the charter, I think what is important for us to note is that the approval of the business case and the charter will be approved by the steerco after the business case has been developed. So that is very, very important for as a governance decision. So it is approved by the steering committee. It's not the sponsor. As much as the sponsor will be, let's say, there's a view that the sponsor will issue this to you, but it will be approved. In terms of approval, the highest delegated authority, that is the steerco, that is the program steerco, or they refer to it as the governance board. If you go to the standard for program management, they refer to it as the governance board. So that will be the highest authorized body, so that's what they do. And then everything else, so as you go through the detail, you will understand it's basically in line with what we've covered, so we measure success. When we want to measure success in the end, whether our program has really delivered as expected, or whether it supported the motives of the organization. So you will then be using the program charter, because program success, you want to measure program success, and it has got the definition, so it has got the matrix for success, so you understand there's a link, objectives, and the success criteria. So all of these are just talking about the success and how a program charter becomes relevant, so when you are now getting closer to closing your program, or maybe to determine whether your program was a success or not, so it is at least something to help you measure it correctly. Yeah, maybe I see we still have a bit of time, so we can. I think it's good to cover the roadmap at least, and then we can leave the other areas for tomorrow. So now that we have a charter, right? So we already identified some components. So with the components, we have an idea. We know what benefits are. We know what the scope is, and now what we want to get to is now mapping these projects according to how the sponsor and the stakeholders want to realize these benefits, because we need to map it. We have this program, it's 10 years, so now we need to understand the priorities based on how the benefits are expected by the sponsor or by the organization. So now we are going to develop this roadmap, because we need to have a very clear understanding of what needs to be prioritized for the next 3 years, next 5 years, next 7 years, or next 10 years. We need to be clear of the 3, 5, and 10-year horizon. So there must be. Remember, we have a vision. We know exactly what we want to achieve, but how do we transition now, this organization from the current state to the future state through our program efforts, so that's the question. So for us to do that, the program roadmap is going to answer that, and it's going to graphically depict exactly what we're going to do in tranches. We tranche it. We know that, okay, tranche number 1, there you go. This is what we're going to do. We're going to execute project 1, 2, 3, and 4. And based on these projects, this is the value that they will deliver to, or this is the value that is expected from this tranche. So now we'll be able to say, okay, based on what is expected, we need the combination of these projects so that we can be able to match the value expected by the customer. So you prioritize the value based on the expectations from the customer. When we say expectation, we're referring to benefits, because why do we exist as program managers? We want to deliver benefits. So for these benefits to be realized, we need to understand the combination. What will enable the customer to deliver benefit? That's what we're coordinating. We want to make sure that we have the right combination of projects that are working toward, that are going to contribute towards a common goal, common output, or common benefit. That is why we exist. Our coordination is to do exactly that. And as one is getting delayed, we manage those interdependencies at a later stage. So for now, we're still setting up this roadmap, but we need to first understand those hard questions. So, and this is also, in fact, it's just that it's not shown nicely here. So the charter would be somewhere in the middle, and then the roadmap is towards the end of the program formulation subphase, because it is an output of the program formulation subphase, even though it's just not clear at this stage. It's as though it's somewhere in between. It's supposed to be a formulation subphase, deliverable. That's what is in the standard. Standard to everything here. So business case, roadmap, and charter, they are part of formulation, so those are the key outputs. Okay, so who creates the program roadmap? That's you as the program manager. And program phase, that is program definition, but if we look at the subphase, then it will be the formulation subphase. So business case, roadmap, and charter, formulation subphase outputs. And why is the program roadmap created? Because we want to understand, the major events, in the program, the key decision points, For instance, we're going to have these projects and we're going to tranche everything according to how the client wants to realize these benefits. So excuse me. So as part of that process, it is also very important for us to know the decision gates, because remember, we are responsible for component governance. The program sponsor is responsible for the program governance side. So there must be order. So that's why we always need to go to the program sponsor to get permission if something is outside of your decision-making power, your decision-making threshold. So the same interpretation, you and the program team are responsible for the component governance. That's why you will be chairing the project steering committee as the program manager, because all the projects or components within your program will be reporting to you via a dashboard, so that you can get an appreciation of the status of your program. Then you consolidate all those different dashboards from the components, and then prepare your program dashboard, which will then be, assuming your sponsor is a portfolio manager. So then all of these dashboards from these various portfolio components will then be consolidated by the portfolio manager to go report at another platform, which is at a business level. So that's how, which is Exco, so that's how this thing works. So that is why now it is important that you also ensure that there is effective governance at the component level, so that you can get the necessary support. So part of that, you need to, even though you are, in a way, you're managing, you will be interested in the start and finish dates. That's what you're going to present in your roadmap, because you will outline the major program events that will be used for further detailed planning, because remember, you're still in the program initiation or program formulation at this stage. You don't have that much detail, but you have an idea of the start and finish dates. And you might also understand that, okay, if you're placing this component, at least you might want to track at least the gate review dates, so you don't want to miss that. As much as you are not in charge of the detail, but those key decision gates, or the events, you want to be close to those program events, because when for you to see whether this project is relevant or has satisfied the requirements for it to be initiated, then it needs to move to planning. So you need to be part of those. You need to be close to that detail. You can't be far. It must be something that you are tracking. At least you might not be tracking the execution. You allow the project manager to run with that. But when it comes to those key decisions, you must be part of that as a program manager. And it could be other decisions like as part of the perform integrated change control. That is you and your program team that are actually facilitating decision making in those cases. And if for whatever reason it's outside of your decision making threshold, then you know the story. There's then an escalation protocol that you need to follow. You escalate to the highest level. What is your highest level? That is the program sponsor. If the program sponsor as well has limitations in terms of decision making, there is a highest level, which is the program steering committee, which could be chaired by the sponsor, but at least the sponsor will have more decision-making power as part of the committee, because now the steering committee will be the one making a decision and not the sponsor as an individual. So that is the difference. But we're going to touch more on that when we're focusing on governance. But just to show you the link, because now we're talking about the strategic alignment, but strategic alignment in the context of a program life cycle, and we're also discussing governance elements because they are very important. You can't really separate them. So as you go through each each of these, so you will see that there is a very strong connection. And how is this roadmap used? So basically it's more like a high level schedule, like a milestone schedule. So it is used to assess progress, for you to know how your program is progressing. Sometimes if it's a senior executive that is interested in just to understand, high level, so how far is this program? you're not going to give them a program master schedule, so you will give them a roadmap, because they just want a quick reference. And even in your reporting, you use the roadmap just to indicate, okay, all the projects that are in your program, because you need to indicate that 10-year view and indicate exactly, because there is a ThinkCell. I think we're using ThinkCell to create these very fancy roadmaps where you can at least show the percentage progress at a project level. So you have a start and finish, and you are able to indicate exactly when a key decision is going to be and the progress. You just move the line to say, okay, now 40%, 50%, 60%, and so forth. So it's a very good graphical depiction of how the program is performing. So for that level, because remember, it is at a strategic level. You are sitting there, you're presenting to big eaters, steering committee. Those are big eaters, so everyone, they have the influence, so you need to also pitch things at that strategic level. Okay, so this is a typical roadmap, and how it looks like. So as indicated earlier, so you will have, like in this case, they are calling them waves, and one can call them tranches. So okay, you're gonna have wave number one, or tranche number one, tranche two, tranche three. So as much as they don't have a number of projects, like in this case, just to show you that maybe in wave number one, you might have a number of projects that are targeted, assuming that, like in this case, I see there's 3 waves. If we can assume that this is a 3-year program, so wave number one, assuming that it's year number one, there's 1 project that needs to be completed in wave number one, because it will deliver some incremental benefit. It might not be the full benefit, but when you integrate that project into the system or the client space, it will add some value, to how the area is performing, or it will eliminate some risk if it was a program more linked to eliminating a risk or ensuring compliance. It will reduce the level of non-compliance in certain areas by completing it. It's working towards a common objective, which is overall, once you've completed wave 1, 2, and 3, you would have addressed all of those. And the benefit is that now the business risk is eliminated. So you're no longer not complying to some legislative requirement. So basically, that's how a roadmap looks like. So it will have those projects, and different projects. You show exactly how they are linked, and the contribution and the key decisions that need to be made at these various stages. As you can see, for instance, in this case, at the end of each wave, for instance, there must be a review. There must be a review just to check if the idea was to deliver a certain set of benefits. Now you need to check, did we realize those benefits? And there must be an audit process. So when the program is saying yes, now the business needs to also, or even the program must have a component or someone who's going to validate. But it can't be under the program manager's reporting. So the sponsor would need to manage that, because there can be conflict, because if the program manager has got authority over that compliance person, then it might there might be conflict. So it must be a standalone person to say, I want to validate the program outcomes. It must be a resource from the portfolio, even though the program might be paying for that audit exercise, just to check, now that we've finished wave 1, what is the improvement? There's a decision point there, because we need to understand, so are we going to give you funds to continue with project E and project J? Because we need to first get the value of wave 1. So in that decision gate, okay, you present, you say, okay, this is what has happened, and the audit results confirm that you've delivered that value. So now let's move to wave number 2. I'm going to release the funds. So through the component component authorization. So yes, we understand these projects are strategically aligned with what the program seeks to achieve. So now this is what we need to do. So then you then you start approving those projects according to when they are planned to start and finish. Because remember, as you can see, like this project might not necessarily start at the same time, and they're not finishing at the same time. So the timing of authorizing, it's based on how you want them to deliver these benefits. And in this decision point as well, wave number 2, before you can approve funding for wave number 3, you need to make sure that what was expected out of this wave has been realized. So in a nutshell, once you understand this concept, you're good. So you're good. So otherwise, then the other stuff around the theory of what a roadmap is, it's more the things that you need to understand for exam purposes. So it's just as you go through it. So what is a roadmap, and what are some of the terms that are linked to a roadmap? So it's things that you need to go through it, internalize them, and through questions. We have structured questions on class marker, which will help you understand the link. So which will help you understand the link of this theory, the roadmap, and the theory linked to the roadmap that you need to know for the exam. So this is more, there's a very strong focus on what exactly you need to know for the exam. But for you to win the PGMP exam, you need to understand the practical application. So that's why we need to discuss in the sessions. But when it comes to now the theory, so this there is unlike PMP, with PGMP you will have at least 20% which is based on theory, a direct line from the standard. So they will just be testing you. So that's why now you need to spend a bit more time understanding these artifacts. Very important, not all the artifacts, but strategy, business case, a charter, and the roadmap are very, very important. So you need to at least understand the theory linked to it, and based on your understanding, then we can start having a discussion. Otherwise, it would be purely just a theory. So, but what we can understand about the roadmap is that it is just a chronological representation. It's graphic. So whenever you talk about a graphical representation or depiction, or something that will be linking the business strategy and the program work, or showing the components, or something that's similar to a schedule, we know. So I mean, that is a roadmap. And only through going through this material you will understand how everything links together. Because looking at this roadmap, what does it show you? It's showing you the components. It's showing you the key decision points, and it's also indicating as well, when each benefit will be realized according to the priorities of the business. So these waves represent they represent the tranches, when these benefits are going to be realized. So in a way, by understanding this, you will be able to link this theory. So it's very important. So sometimes when you go through with the high level understanding, just by interpreting what you see in front of you, then when you go through that theory, it's easier then to link it back to the to this diagram, because in the exam this is exactly what they will be testing. And that's why I have plenty of examples of how a roadmap looks like. But with PMI, it's better to always stick to their own standards, because their exams are designed around their standards. So there mustn't be any confusion. So this is straight from the standard for program management. Okay, so any comments, reflection on this one, or even the chart? Okay, I think the charter we might have covered that. So yeah, on the roadmap, yeah, any comments, any reflection in your standard reporting, as like in the strategic projects? I think Joy, I think in your Saldanha investment, it's quite strategic. I'm sure maybe the different components might have been presented using a roadmap in reporting, considering that we're saying it is a project, but we know that with proper classification, yeah, it's more falling towards a program than a project. So what's your take? What's your reflection on this?
No, definitely, Abongile. I've seen a similar model, and as you're saying, although it's categorized differently than what it should be, but definitely, I have seen a model similar to this nature, whereby instead of referring to the various projects or components of the program, they were more listed as work packages, but it was definitely the principle itself was based on the program road mapping model. Thank you.
Okay, no, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Joy, for that. Yeah, no, it's I think the seniors, senior executives, so they like this a lot because it helps them. They don't have all the time. So if you give them a quick reference, they don't want your schedule, your detailed schedule. So if you just present a roadmap, high level, so that they can understand where the risk is at their level. Because this is a quick reference just to know, is it the right time for them to intervene and protect the investment from any deviation? So that's the key message for today. So I think the rest will then wrap up tomorrow. We should be finalizing the strategy alignment, and that's it. So there's nothing fancy. You see, whenever I say program management is not as complex as PMP. It's just that things might be new, but once you start internalizing it, you will realize that I think you're gonna start looking at your environment differently. That's all. It's just full of the eye openers to say, oh, okay, then it makes you question a lot of things that are happening in your environment. Where you're gonna question, why are they doing things this way instead of this? So that then you are empowered. Now, just because you're not doing it, now you know it should be done in a different way in order for the business to benefit, in a more organized manner. But again, we need to be fair to the businesses. They don't need to be perfect. There's always room for improvement. And through this knowledge and influence, we can then be able to influence in our environments to change them for the better, and add value to the customer. So which is the overall goal. Okay, so I think that's it for today, colleagues. So tomorrow then we'll wrap up the strategy alignment. Thank you very much for this fruitful session. Cheers.
Cheers, Abongile. I think we can start on this one tomorrow, just to pick up further discussion on my side and maybe some interpretations on the roadmap itself.
Okay, no, cool stuff, no problem. Sure.
Okay, cheers, Tim.
Cheers to everyone.